Hello, this is Dr. Stephanie, and this video is not the recap. It's not a recap. What are we doing? I'm not gonna, you know what? Outtakes are fun, so I'm just gonna keep going. This video that you're about to watch is the extended version of the Girls Night Out experience that was so phenomenal. The first half of it, we chopped it up to give you that insight on the concept of equanimity. And this part is the longer part of the video. Hopefully that gave you some insight on how we talk, so you can see how profound these conversations are. This segment is really going to engage a few other women, and we're going to talk about how do you show up, or matter of fact, how do you think you're showing up in the world. The insight is eye-opening, insightful, and potentially transformational if you allow yourself to absorb the wisdom that's given in the videos. Girls' nights out are fun, exciting. Sometimes you might feel a little tear, but you always leave out by going, yes, I got that. I want you to have that experience too, because I know that you can get it. You can expand your horizons and move from panic to empowerment in every aspect of your life. But we do it with one concept at a time. This concept is to get you to see or acknowledge how you're showing up to the world actually in relationship to how you believe you're showing up. So without further ado, this video is going to be fantastic, awesome, and amazing. So until next time, be well. Thinking you're showing up one way and showing up is completely different.
Yeah.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi.
I get to see your whole
Tracy.
face, not just your chin. Yay.
You have nice teeth, Tracy.
Good. You see my teeth?
Yeah, they look good.
I'm a teeth person, so I always notice that.
Really? Okay. All right.
My mom, too. I think I was the only person in my family that never had braces. My mom, my brother, all three of my kids. I never had braces. And my mom got braces when I was in 7th grade, because she said she wanted to have teeth like me. No idea where these teeth came from, because nobody in my family has teeth like this.
Wow.
Even my grandmother didn't have no teeth at the end.
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh. So Tracy, we were having a really good conversation. Tenor, we're still working on it.
Okay.
So we're talking about how you show up, or how you think you show up to the world in relationship to what's really going on. Like, you might think that I'm helpful, I'm supportive, I'm loving, I'm resourceful, and you may be all of those things, but those are the things that aren't driving you. What's driving you is what's behind the scenes that you haven't identified. And that's why the Zyto tells you the emotions that you have, and you look at the report and you go, I'm not frustrated, I'm not angry, I'm not sad, I'm not lonely. But everything you do in the front of it is driven by that. So for instance, you might say you're not frustrated, and it might show up as being impatient to others. You might interpret it as, I'm a type A personality, I just got to get things done. Right? So that's how you perceive it, and what's really happening could be different. I had a client who was very upset because her Zyto scan said that she had hate. And she says, I don't hate nobody. That's a strong word. And I said, okay, well, that's fair. But let's look at the reality that your Zyto said hate was way across the page.
Wow.
And so she was stuck in her understanding of not being able to express hate from a child's perspective, because we're all taught, don't hate nobody, that's a strong word. So when that emotion comes up, it's negated even by you. Right? It's completely, which is, so what you're doing is you're not being fair to yourself. And when you're not fair to yourself, what happens is you'll say, subconsciously, how do I cover that up? And so what you do is you become very pleasing, very accommodating all the time. And eventually that turns to frustration. Eventually it turns to resentment. Eventually it turns into loneliness, because you know why? You can't express to anybody how you're really feeling because that emotion is unacceptable. So that will make you lonely. You see how you show up, but what's really behind is different.
Right.
It's different. Yeah.
So suppressing the hate turns into a people pleaser, always wanting to.
It could.
Okay.
Because if you have a paradigm of not expressing that emotion because it wasn't acceptable to do so, you're going to have it. But in order to kind of wash it from you because you're feeling guilty that you have it, you become a people pleaser to prove to yourself that I don't hate. Now, the other part of that is the hate doesn't have to be about a person. You can, and so we looked up a definition of the word hate. We would say another word would be disdain, or not fond of, or have strong emotions against. So when you take the word and you find the synonym for it, then you can go, oh yeah, I can see that. Because you can say, I hate violence against children. What's wrong with that? You can say, I have a disdain for injustice. I'm not feeling my Black people being slaughtered. You can do that. Mm-hmm. But because there's a stigma and a paradigm with that one little word, you suppress it all. And in order to prove to yourself that you're not that, you become a pleaser and you're happy and you're loving and and it could be towards somebody who does those things that you abhor. I'm not supposed to hate nobody, but he's a wife beater. You can have disdain for that. We're supposed to stand up for each other and be able to fight for a cause for the little guy. That's scriptural. How can you do that if you don't have a disdain for what's happening? So you'll find that we have these words or these emotions that we weren't able to express, and they're playing in the background. We're showing up in the foreground, and they seem to not match, but actually they do in a mirror version. You see that? Because when you don't want to show hate, you become a people pleaser to prove that you're not hateful. And so they're two mirrors of the same thing. So when you catch yourself being overly something, it's time to say, what is the opposite of that I'm really covering up? My husband is a master at explaining this. When he explained to me at first, I thought he was nuts. He's very wise. My husband is very wise. And I don't catch on to the stuff that he knows until like years later. I kid you not.
Wow.
It's something to be said about this weird wisdom that he has. He has this way of saying it's the same, but it's different. And I'm like, can't we have a conversation? Why has that got to be your answer to everything? It's the same, but it's different. But when I was in traditional Chinese medicine school, that's all they talked about. The yin and the yang, the same, but the difference. And I'm thinking, I need to go home and apologize. That was 10 years later.
Wow.
So you can also be stuck in your own paradigm so strongly that you miss an opportunity to see what's right in front of you. And that could also be because of a mask. So I would like for one of you to express, if you care to, an emotion that you know that you have and how you hide it. How do you hide it?
I remember when I got my Zyto scan done, and I looked at the results. The anger was off the charts. Like there was no more room for it to go on the paper, okay? And I was really disappointed. And it wasn't that I thought I didn't have any anger or I think I'm above becoming angry, but I had been doing so much what I would call self-care that I thought that would be addressing something. I'm like, I'm this angry and I'm doing all these things to try to nurture myself and so forth. But as I was listening to what you were saying, that the emotion is the thing that's behind how you're showing up, or even like, what I was doing. And I was aware that I was not in a good place emotionally, which is why I was engaging in the self-care practices that I was doing, learning different kinds of meditation, making sure I work out, signing up for this self-development seminar, like whatever tools I could get to add to myself and be my best self. But all of that was like, I need to stay on top of my game because the way that I was feeling was attracting more negative experiences. And I'm like, I need to turn this around. So I over-invested and was enjoying what I was getting out of it. But I would have thought this is helping out my emotions. Anger, I would have assumed, was one of them. And then I saw that Zyto scan. I was like, wow.
So you know what you were doing? You were dissipating the overage of the energy that it was giving you, but you weren't being specific enough to pull out the root. So the meditation dissipated the energy of the anger, or whatever strong emotion it was, or whatever monkey was on your back. Getting some endorphins going helps when you exercise. That gets the monkey off your back, but it's never really getting to the monkey. You don't get to the monkey until you get to the Zyto, and then it shows you in real time what it specifically is, because until then, it's just an inkling. Like, I'm just not, let me work out. I'm still kind of, well, you know what, let me change my diet. Well, you know what, I felt good yesterday, but today, the monkey is still there. You can't dissipate it until you know exactly what it is. So your Zyto showed you exactly what it was, and now you have something to work on. So when you're working out and you have this endorphins, you can process anger. Okay, I was angry when my brother wasn't paying attention to me, and I was standing in front of the TV to get his attention, and blah, 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 blah. And then another piece came in today, didn't it? Developmental stages and ages in sex.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So when you know what you're doing and when you can be specific, then the other pieces will start showing up. It's like asking the universe for a car, but not being specific enough about the color, the make, the model, the year. You have to be specific in order to get what you desire, else what you get, you might not be able to appreciate. Right? So when you're specific, because asking you to receive, whether you ask the universe, you ask the Holy Spirit or Heavenly Father, Lord, I need a house. But if you don't say, I need a house that's going to give both of my girls a room for themselves, I'm going to have 2 bathrooms so we won't have to share a bathroom, it's going to have a basement so I can have my space, then you'll get a house, but it might not be what you need because you weren't specific enough. How does that resonate with you?
It hits home. I could definitely see that.
Yeah. So that would explain why you were doing all these self-care things and thinking you were showing up in a particular way, but really being driven by something else because you couldn't see what it was. Now you can see what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Trace? What do you have? What emotion do you think you cover up? Tracy Martin.
I don't know. Frustration?
Yes. Ding, 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 ding. The reason why I said that is because I know you and you juggle a lot of things for a lot of people. And there's no way on the planet That you cannot be frustrated with spending all your energy to everything outside of yourself and not giving yourself something back. So how do you cover that up? How do you cover it up? How do you hide it?
I'm thinking that sometimes I wouldn't say overcompensate. It
But
seems
you
like
could.
I'm always explaining myself to people. And I over-explain to people that don't really need it. They don't necessarily want it, but I do it because I've done it for the ones that do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that's my frustration channeling into explaining myself, because I'm an honest person. I try to be straightforward. So to me, the opposite of explaining myself or going too far explaining myself is as if I'm thinking people see me as a liar.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
There are, there's some people that are some family members that don't trust what you say because you're seen as a know-it-all or a goody two-shoe. So you're always, I'm sometimes over-explaining myself more than I should. Since I am straightforward, I try to be straightforward and upfront with people. So that's frustrating. So how do I mask it, or what am I doing to cover it up? I think, I go too far explaining myself all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's because of work, because you always have to explain yourself at work, because work can be micromanaging.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's probably a combination of both.
So is it possible that the underlying emotion is not necessarily frustration, but insecurity? Because when you're secure, you don't have to speak so often. You say what you say, you're confident in what you said, and you leave it. Is that either you're going to take it or you're not, because I'm good with how I delivered it, and that's on you. But when you're insecure, you will find yourself constantly reinforcing what you said. So sometimes it's about what you hear yourself say to give yourself validation. Like, hey, I said that, and that's smart, and that's coming from a reputable source, and I'm going to repeat it, because when I repeat it, it gives me a sense of validation and security, because it gives me a sense that I know what I'm talking about, because people don't pay attention to me, and they don't think I know what I'm talking about, but I do know what I'm talking about. So I have to say it to make sure that they understand, because I'm insecure. How does that resonate with you?
That sounds correct. That sounds correct.
Yeah. I really, really enjoy these calls, because you get a chance to do something that you rarely get a chance to do. You get a chance to examine yourself and see yourself, because nobody really looks at themselves until we get into an experience like this, do we? You're just going along in your day. I'm going to work. I got to go cook. I got to do this. I got to do this. But then what happens is, over time, you start to realize you don't know yourself. You don't know who you are. I don't mean you, Tracy, or Tenora, or Tamara. I mean just globally. If you spend so much time outside of yourself, how would you ever get to be introduced to the inside of you, let alone cultivate a relationship? So we do ancillary things to appease the fact that we are taking care of ourselves without really knowing what we need. So Tenora, you knew that something was arrived, but you didn't quite know what you needed. So you were like picking at stuff. It's like a nutritionist that says, this is your diet and you should do your green leafies and make sure it's got a whole bunch of colors and occasionally throw in some carbohydrates and you can have sugar occasionally. You're like, what? What does that mean? But when you get a hair tissue analysis, you go, oh, now I see what this means. But until then, we have no idea who we are, what our needs are, what we want. Sometimes we don't even know what we desire. You can be in a relationship with someone else and never really know them, and 10, 15 years can go by because everybody's just doing their routine. Hi, honey, you want some dinner? What's going on with you? No, no, no. Let's go take the kids. No. I'm asleep. You sleep. You might have sex. But, you know, after that, it's like, who is this person? Do I really know them? Do they really know me? More times than not, you can't answer the question whether you know them until you recognize that you don't know you. Because when you get to know who you are, you get to know your wants, your desires, your fears, your shortcomings, your long whatever, then you realize, you know what? I may or may not have chosen this particular partner because now I know myself. We even make choices from a position of not knowing who we are. And they become long-term experiences, and sometimes you get locked in and you never find out who you are. Until one day, one of the partners do something crazy, and you be like, I never would have expected them to do that. And they were like, but this is me, though. And you go, it is? Who knew? Like, my husband likes to skydive. He would literally get in a plane and jump down. I'm like, you crazy. But that's okay. But it wasn't something that I would have thought that he would have done. It's just one day he sent me a video and said, babe, I just got finished skydiving. I'm about to go up again. I'm like, what?
Twice in one day.
What? You did what?
That's the military in him, though.
I guess. And here's a really interesting paradigm, because we'll bring in relationships. That showed me that my husband is a risk taker and a daredevil, right? I am not a risk taker. I like things to be safe, but I'm spontaneous. If I would have known that part of him and he decided that he wanted to do that constantly, I don't know how we would work out, because I would constantly be pins on needles that he would be harmed. And that level of fear would just freak me out and be like, you know what? We can't do this. So until you really know yourself, everything else is kind of like up for grabs. It's like a figment of your imagination. You know, what you think is not what's really happening, even with yourself. Even with yourself.
So, ladies, I just want to acknowledge Tamara Julian, because she's an old friend of mine.
I put her on mute, so
Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, ladies?
Good. I don't know.
I'm sorry I was a bit tardy, but I was engaged in something else. Can you guys? Did I lose you?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm just looking for the screen because I did something.
Yeah,
Okay,
feel free to chime in. And even though we can't see your picture, I will ask you a question or two. And
I just settled myself.
All right. Okay.
I just jumped in my bed. I was moving back and forth, and I didn't want to become a distraction.
No worries. So hopefully you got a chance to hear the conversation thus far.
I did, and the commentary that you gave, Tracy, in terms of kind of over-explaining, I could definitely connect to that, especially when I think about work and just making sure like people understand exactly what I'm saying so that I'm misunderstood. And I heard you ask Tracy the question about what emotion it is that we have, that, well, the underlying emotion. And I think for the most part, it's fear, because I want to be understood. I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm saying. And I totally agree. It's that uncertainty with my own self, right? So I have to kind of replay it and make sure that it makes sense to me so that it can make sense to others. And I even find myself asking, do you understand what I mean? You know, just so that I can get that sense of understanding on the other end, if that makes any sense.
There you go again. Because that. So would you does it resonate with you that it may be an insecurity?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so here's the thing about insecurity. You ready for it? Drum roll. Everybody is insecure. Everyone. It just depends on how it shows up. And what you do to hide it. The best way to deal with insecurity is to face it head on. And if I were to give you and Tracy a nudge in a direction, I would say practice saying what you mean, meaning when you say, and leaving it. That's it.
Got it.
And let that be. Scripture says, let your yes be your yes and your no be your no.
Right.
There's no explanation required. If I say yes, I'm going to quantify it with an explanation, but not over the top. And I'm not going to ask you whether you got it or not, because I delivered it. And if it was for you to receive, you will receive it. And if not for you to receive, you won't. And that has nothing to do with me.
Got it.
Or you two. Yeah. Yeah. That insecurity is a beast. Tenora and I were gonna do the Zyto tonight so everybody can see it live, but we had some glitches, and she's like, I'm so disappointed. I said, don't be, that just means it's not time. Right? And we're still having a level of engagement that we can all grow from. And one of the words she said was, I said, well, Tenora, she said, how is this gonna look? I said, we're just gonna scan just so you can see how it works, and then I'll pull up an old report, you know, if you don't want to share your results. She says, no, I'll be transparent. And I said, good for you. And so the next lesson, the next thing that we're going to do is go around the four of us, and I'll start with myself, and I'll share with you some of my insecurities, even with the level of person that you perceive that I am. Is that cool?
That's cool with me.
Okay.
So one of my insecurities is my gray hair. That really just rocked my world. And Tracy has beautiful hair. It's short and it's gray, and it looks really beautiful. And so if you're socialized to accept yourself, then it's not a big deal. But nobody in my family has ever revealed their gray hair. Even my 97-year-old grandmother had 5 different wigs. So my aunts never showed their gray hair. My father, my mother doesn't have gray hair. Nobody on either side of my family. So how does that make me feel? Am I the only person out of all of these 50 people that got gray hair? What's happening here? And then I felt, well, wait a minute, I'm a naturopath. I'm supposed to be healthy. Does that mean I'm aging beyond my age? Well, I wouldn't say 53 is a premature aging, right? I got my oldest kid is 32 years old. So, you know, it works. But because I wasn't socialized that way, something as frivolous and unnecessary caused me anguish. Because I wasn't sure how I was supposed to show up with this thing. So what did I do? I used henna, and henna turned my hair red. Tracy, remember my red phase? And as my hair was still like, it was determined it was going to be gray. I started with the halo, and then it was red, and then it was white. And then the part that wasn't red was brown because the rest of my hair was long. And then I had like white, red, and brown hair. And I'm thinking, what the snap is going on? And I don't like wigs. So I had to get I had to go through changes of what do you call those things? What do you call them? Crochet braids. I went through the crochet braid phase. I went through all these phases. And the interesting thing about it, my husband kept saying to me was, if you're my wife and I think that gray hair is sexy, why do you keep hiding it when I'm the only person that should matter? And I was like, okay. Because beauty for a woman is all about looking good, but we are designed to look good for the opposite sex. So my real in the back insecurity was, would men think that I was old? And it's like, wait a minute, what does it matter? I'm married. So that was like a whole paradigm thing going on here. That created a lot of insecurity. And it got to the point where I had 2 hair malfunctions where I had to cut all my hair off. So I can grow long hair and grow short hair. And a year ago, back in October, I had to get my hair cut this short because I had a weave in, and when the knots got cut out, it cut my hair. And that meant I had to cut all my hair off, and then I had to go through gray and short. When I'm used to long and brown. And so that was a growth for me. And then I started having to really look inside and say, where do I fit in with all of this chatter in my spirit about how I look? Because it doesn't have to be gray hair. It could be blotches on your face. It could be adult acne. It could be anything. But that was my insecurity because I was raised in a very superficial but loving family. And what I mean by superficial is everybody in my family had so many secrets and demons, they covered them up with all the flash. And what it meant was I was the first one to be transparent and start the healing process. And that meant that I had to let the real me come through even as I was aging into a mature woman. Not old, but mature. But that was a huge insecurity. Some people, it's their weight. But then you have big, beautiful, voluptuous women, 300-400 pounds, and they show up so perfectly, you don't even see their weight until like an hour later. You're like, oh, okay. But they show up like, if they don't express it, you don't see it, do you? You don't see it. So I just started showing up and embracing my gray hair, and now I absolutely love it because people are saying, did you go to the hairdresser and get that, girl? That look good. And I was like, no, honey, I grew it. So I haven't changed the way I style my hair. This is the first time that I've been able to get a ponytail in 8 months, so my hair grows fast. But I haven't changed my style of dress to reflect me being older. Right? I haven't changed my style. I haven't changed the way I show up in the world. I just accepted this is a part of me. That's me. Now, some parts is some women have to embrace my hair is getting thin, or I'm going bald, or whatever the case may be. But you see that beautiful senator that shaved her head off and she's completely bald, and she is the most fabulous, gorgeous woman I've seen in a long time. You haven't seen a senator that's bald? She's a Black woman. Oh, let me see if I can find her. So while I'm looking for that, somebody else can talk about what they're insecurity about and how they had a breakthrough. Don't be shy.
I think I'll go.
Okay.
I think that one of my insecurities is public speaking.
Okay.
Public speaking, and I had a boss who was really, really supportive, and he knew that was one of the things that, like, you can get me to do anything, but speaking in front of the staff and that's just not my thing. And so I believe that I was given the opportunity to develop that in myself, and so I'll do it, whereas before, like, the palpitations and the sweaty palms and, all of that would come with it. And it still comes, but it's not as intense. because I got a little more comfortable doing it. I still think that, I mean, I've gone as far as to research speech therapists so that, you know, I could figure out if this was something that, you know, was just in my mind or if it was something that I needed to look into, because my thoughts just get, you know, they cross each other, and I just don't feel that I'm able to articulate my ideas the way that I wanted to come through. And so the breakthrough for me was pretty much be just doing it, because I wouldn't do it at all before. But I still feel that there's still a part of me that becomes concerned when I do have to deliver something to a group of people.
So can I ask you this? Is it that you may have been socialized to not stand out or not be noticed?
Absolutely.
There you go. There you go. There's a reframe. I've encountered this before with another client, and I would like to give you some insight on where this came from so you can overcome it. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
So when we're socialized, our parents tell us things and show us things for two reasons: to teach us how to protect, to survive, and to teach us how to take care of ourselves. They're not synonymous.
Mm.
When taking care of yourself is teaching you how to wash your clothes, teaching you how to brush your teeth, making sure you take a shower, clean clothes, that kind of thing. Teaching you how to survive is more about teaching you how to be in the world as a person of color. And so when we're taught as children of color to sit still and be quiet, that was because we could always be in a position where someone would want to do us harm. But if you don't notice that we're around, then we're not your target. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a young or an older, and it usually would happen, here's let me mute. It usually would happen I can't mute myself. Mute. Ask to mute. Okay, wait a minute. It usually happens with our grandparents. Your grandparents will teach your parents and your parents teach you. Now, if you think that if most of us are in our 40s already, that means our parents are at least 70 and their parents, if they're still alive, are at least 90. My grandmother just passed away and she was 97. In my great-grandmother's generation, Black children were supposed to be used and abused. And when we weren't being used and abused, we were working really hard. And so the grandparents would say, stay in a corner, be quiet, keep yourself hidden. Don't draw attention to yourself. When they were saying that, the children understood the context. A generation later, that information is still given, but what's missing is the context. And then another generation later, the context is still missing, but the mandate still follows, and it translates into dysfunctional understanding, and the behavior will show fear of, I'm supposed to be quiet, I'm supposed to not let myself be seen, but I want to be a public speaker. If it was clarified to you why that happened, you wouldn't have the fear of public speaking because the same situation would not have applied. Unfortunately, we're in a new world and it might apply now. That's unfortunate. My sorority sister, Sandra Bland, she had an unfortunate occurrence, but really the only thing that you can charge her to was speaking her piece. Why'd you pull me over? That was an illegal stop. You know, there was nobody behind me, so why did I have to put my signal on? That was her only real crime. She spoke up. So when you look at how we're socialized, you have to think about it in the context in which it's given, and then see if it still fits for you today. Now, in the context of you public speaking, if you heard that children are to be seen and not heard, you can think it but you not say it, blah, blah, those are all protective things for you. It just wasn't clarified. And now that you can see, hopefully see the two, how does that resonate with you, and how do you feel about what you just heard?
It makes sense. The words make sense, but at the same time, the feelings that come up with it is still very true.
Yeah, because you were a child and you had no point of reference as to the why, and so therefore you don't know when to turn it on and turn it off, because it wasn't clarified. Right? Because your socialization is not where that type of language was necessary back then. It's not necessary now, at least, you know. And so therefore you find that you have to look at things from a perspective now. If you're in a profession where it is appropriate and sometimes even necessary for you to speak, then your adult mind should say, then it's okay for me to do so. It's your child's mind still telling you no, 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 because that's part of your job description maybe. So there's a disconnection between the child's mind and the adult mind of what's really happening. And the child mind can't be allowed to rule, but it only rules if there is no segue into the understanding of either places. But hopefully you can see now where it came from. Here's a funny joke, and you probably heard this, or you've done it, or your family's done it. So there was this mother and this daughter, and they were in the kitchen cooking Thanksgiving dinner. And the mom says, make sure you cut the butt off the ham. And the daughter says, but why? You know, millennials got to ask you a question, but why? And she said, because I said so. She's like, but why? It don't make no sense. She says, I don't know. Call your grandmother. She calls the grandma, why do you cut the butt off the ham? She says, baby, because my mom been cutting the butt off the ham for years. She calls great-grandma, why do you cut the butt off the ham? She's like, what? Why you cut the butt off? She said, why you ask me a dumb question so it can fit in the pan?
Right.
You
Real
see my
simple,
point?
right?
So because the context wasn't passed down generationally, it just becomes a rote act without any cognition. And doing a rote act without any cognition can cause harm. Because, like, I mean, I don't eat ham, but when I did, it was like, why are you cutting off the butt of ham and throwing it away? We can make some greens with that. What are you doing? Right? So now you're wasting something because you don't understand the context in which it was given. Once you understand the context, then you can make an informed choice. So is the child's perspective from your paradigm. You have to get to that and understand where it came from. And then you just have to say, how do I see this from an adult's perspective? If this is my job and they're asking me to do this and I'm rejecting it, then there's a disconnect in me. And the disconnect is that understanding, because it must be good if I'm asked to do it. So here's that picture of that congresswoman. Can you see it?
I think I have seen her before.
Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful. Because you're not defined by your hair. She has so much confidence bald. Do you see that same level of confidence with this hair?
No, she looks more confident bald.
Yeah. Because that's her truest self. She liberated herself. This was what she was doing to cover up that emotion. It could have been insecurity. It could have been anything. But obviously she was covering it up. Not only did she not look as confident, but she even wears colors that accentuate her face. This is a muted color. This is a bold color. So she's now saying, look at me. This one is saying, I'm hiding in all these clothes. So you can show up. And if there's an observant person, Tenora and I talked about being present, being the conscious observer. A conscious observer will see, wow, there's a lot of sadness behind her eyes. I wonder what she's going through. Here, I want to ask her questions. I want to know what she knows because she's confident. This one, I feel a sense of compassion. Like, what's happening right here? Right? When we're not confident, the people who are looking at us can see the exact same things. And it's not to say that you have to be confident all the time. But once you're aware of what's driving your front, what you present will be more authentic. So I just think that she's such a beautiful woman, with her bald head or without her bald head, but there's something to be said about her showing up in a way that says, it's me, this is it, this is what you're going to get. I love it, you don't have to, and that's all. And she didn't have to make too many statements about it either. I think she made 1 or 2 statements about it. She did an interview or 2, and then it was over. She doesn't keep reinforcing her need or why she has a bald head. And the truth is, she has alopecia and she was hiding it. That's her story. But she didn't keep talking about it. It was a one and done. I gave it to you, it's over.
And it's okay.
And that's perfectly fine. So would anybody else like to share their insecurity? And maybe we can work through it. Hi, Josie. She didn't hear me. Oh, let me unmute her. So, Tracy, you did yours. Tamara, you did yours. I did mine. Tenora, did you do your insecurity?
I didn't, because you said you said an insecurity that you've had a breakthrough in.
Well, it doesn't have to be a breakthrough. If you can share it, then maybe I can help you. So before we do that, Tamara, did you feel that there was a shift in your understanding of your insecurity?
I totally get what you were saying, but I mean, I feel that there's more to where my insecurity comes from. If I could, and I don't want to take, time out of other people's sharing, but I as a child, I was sexually abused, to be transparent with you. And so as a child coming up, it was always questionable around not wanting to be seen, right? So that the focus would not be on me. But yet, as I got older, where you don't have a choice but to socialize, right? When you grow into adolescence and then adulthood, that's just what you're faced with. Socialization is a part of life. And so it appeared in my adulthood, I would say, in all aspects, with how I socialize with my friends and how I socialize then at work and things of that sort. So I get where it comes from, and there's tons of work around just that, right? And growing, how do I say it? Growing into working on it, right? But I still feel that there's still remnants of that not wanting to be seen and not feeling sure of myself that kind of stunts what I see or what I would want for myself.
I'm smiling because I totally understand what you just said. I am also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And that's something that I don't hide. It's not something that I wear as a badge of honor, but I've worked through the places where you seem to be stuck. So I totally get it. Because one of the things that shows up for us is shame. And the shame is it because of the way that I look that this person felt the need to do the things that they did to me? And there's nothing I can do to control how my body is, so I'm going to hide it. And I'm going to make myself as invisible as I can in order to not be seen, so no one else will get the inclination to harm me again. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know the
Mhm.
feeling very well. And how I
Mhm.
was able to combat that was I went to therapy, but I also made peace with the fact that the things that happened to me were not because of me.
Mhm.
It was the other person's issue, not mine.
Mhm.
And so what I started to do was I started to pay attention to my fears and my anxieties as they showed up.
Mhm.
I used to wear baggy clothes.
Mhm.
I used to not want to wear makeup. Nothing to draw attention to myself. I've always had long hair my entire life, and every time it got long, I would cut it off because that would be something that would draw attention to me, because not too many brown girls have long, wavy, curly hair.
Mhm.
And so I didn't want anybody to notice. So I cut
Mhm.
it off.
Mhm.
And I would, all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
So I get it. I totally get it. But that thing that's holding you down is only a cap on the greatness that you are. And it's completely okay to let that cap come off, because what's
Mhm.
gonna pop out is magnificent.
Mhm.
Absolutely extraordinary. Because God don't make no junk,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I get that. You can and you will be able to work through that if you step away just a millisecond and separate yourself from the behavior of the other person.
Mhm. And
Because it,
Dr. Stephanie,
yeah.
I I feel like I've and I've shared this with Sonora. There's a lot of work that I've done on myself within, I would say, at least the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Very proud of that work, and I feel so much more confident in myself and how I show up in places. But when it comes to public speaking, that's the part where it shows up still.
Yeah, because if you think about it, what I explained to you from the grandparents' paradigm actually really did apply to us. And I
Mm-hmm.
say us because there was something about us that drew the attention of the person who felt the desire to do what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why our grandparents wanted us to be quiet and silent and whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
because that frame of reference wasn't there, you only see it from this happened to me and I feel horrible and it is what it is. You can, case in point, not only am I a public speaker, but I do this. I write books and I'm a singer, and I'm the most confident and the happiest when I'm on stage singing in front of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I shine right there because that's my moment to say, in all of this stuff, all of this, everybody's looking at me, nothing's happening to me negatively, and I get to shine the gift back to the world that God gave me. So that person could never cover it up. If that was their intention, they failed.
Mm-hmm.
They failed.
Mm-hmm.
So your speaking, your ability to speak is going to be your breakthrough for most of this work. My mom used to say, your mouth going to get you in trouble. And because she said that, when bad things were happening to me, I didn't tell. And then when I did tell, nobody believed me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started talking about it, older people would say, yeah, we knew something was happening. I'm like, well, then why you ain't say nothing?
Mm-hmm.
So then I was mad.
Mm-hmm.
So then after a while, I became my own advocate, and I advocate for myself. So I speak my truth. I advocate for you to speak your truth. I help you work through those emotional blockages so you will not be the victim of anything else, not medical mishaps, not bad relationships, not anything. And that is the complete reason why I created what I call moving from panic to empowerment. Because with all the stuff that I've endured, there's no way in the world that maybe I should even still be alive. I have been through the ringer, but I'm still standing. And when my mom said, think it but not say it, and your mouth's going to get you in trouble. I had to override the reason why she was saying it and learn to stand up for myself, because when I listened to her, I got hurt. I got hurt. It wasn't her intention, but that was a paradigm that was passed down like the ham. So I encourage you to volunteer, stand up to speak, because the more you do it, the more exhilarated you will become, because it's such a win. If you allow it to be, you get high on the win. And then it's like, when somebody's, I'll speak. When I do radio interviews, before the host asks me, I go, yeah, I'll sing on air, no problem. And it was like, oh, I was just about to ask you, would you do an impromptu concert? Absolutely. Every single chance I get to shine, I will take it. Because for so long, I had to hide under the shadow of something that was never mine to hide under. And God gave me too many gifts for them not to be used. So the other thing is, you say to yourself, what gifts did God give me that I'm not using? And why not? He gave them to you for a reason. So I hope this resonated with you.
It has. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you will be able to rise above it if you just give yourself the chance. Pull on your strengths, not your fear. Yeah. Anybody else? Oh, this is so delicious. I was considering writing a book about being a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. It'd be another From Panic to Empowerment book. And I just probably haven't had the time, but I also had to decide whether I was whole enough to be as transparent as I need to be to help someone like you come through. Because it will require me to be transparent. As transparent as I was in my second book, I think I could do it. Because it's not a light subject. It's very deep. It's very deep. Josie, you still there? Do you have an insecurity?
Hi, Dr. Stephanie.
Hi, honey. Is there a insecurity that you think you're hiding and putting a mask on for? What do you think it is? Mine was my gray hair. Tamara's was her not wanting to speak in public. Tracy's was constantly explaining herself. And Tenora, I didn't skip you, but you said you wanted to think about it because you didn't have a breakthrough yet, right? How about you, Josie?
Well, you just said like two of them, the gray hair and speaking in public. And also, when I just came to this country, I was teased because of my accent. And so, because of that, I guess I never wanted to speak much. So I was very quiet and almost like an observer. I wouldn't speak, but I would listen. And people always say, "You're so quiet. How come you don't say anything?" And so, how I work through it is to be starting to be proud of my heritage and allowing that to move me forward.
And how did you get that heritage pride? What was the catalyst that helped you do that?
Just being around my older relatives. Yeah, being around my an aunt who is 102. Yeah, being around her just gave me that confidence. And so that's what helped me to overcome that.
That's a very poignant point that you just made, because if you are around energy that's positive, it can dissipate your negative energy and bring you back to life. There is research that says that when a person is in the hospital it's not so much the medicine and the monitors that makes them well. What makes them well is when relatives come to visit and you hold their hands and you kiss them and you show them love. You're giving them some of your positive energy, but you're also taking a little bit of their negative energy away from them so they can recover. And the more a person has visitors, the more they recover. This is a research study. So there's something to be said about connecting yourself to people that are positive or exude positive energy, or are confident enough about what they do from an authentic, compassionate, godly, loving place that they have enough to give you without missing a beat. And that's probably why I continue to do these sessions after a full day's work, because I do have enough to give you without missing a beat. Now, after 9 o'clock, I'm exhausted. But right now, I have enough to impart and give to you. And I pray that you feel it and take it and use it to grow. Because a lot of times when women get on this call, they're so depleted. There's nobody to pour into you to give you something back. And when you have a connecting point like a charge is really good. And to be honest with you, my husband is my charge. He's crazy as that bug. He's funny. He keeps me laughing. He keeps me guessing. I'm like, but what are you doing right now? But he gives me energy. And I told him the other day, I said, babe, that's your job, is to give me energy when I'm not feeling well. He's like, you right. But it doesn't have to be your spouse. It can be your children. I get a lot of joy from being around my children. They're grown up and they're in their 30s and they're doing their thing and they have these monumental issues. And I'm thinking, that ain't that deep, right? But to them, it's monumental. But just to have them communicate with me and for me to be able to like look at them, like look through them as my children, even though they're grown, that gives me life. It gives me energy. I get energy when I grab a microphone. I could be dog tired, somebody say stuff, you sing, yeah, I got it. Where's the microphone? That's me. So finding something that gives you energy is so critical to your development emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Because we are going to naturally give it away anyway. So you have to actively put it back in. You got to find that sweet spot. So being around someone that gives you energy, Josie, is what gave you that shift. So it wasn't actually work you had to do. You just had to be in a place to be. And you just got it. It just kind of floated, right? That energy.
Yeah.
So a lot of times your recovery isn't as difficult as you need it, as you think it is. It could just be in a matter of changing your environment. Changing your relationships. Changing who you say that you agreed to hang out with and things that you don't agree to do. Sometimes you have to make shifts. But be willing to make the shift and feel good about it and not apologize for it. Because at the end of the day, everybody's doing what they need to do to take care of themselves. And when you take care of yourself, then you have a lot more to give. It's reciprocal. You can't never always give and never receive. It's an impossibility. Because that's where resentment and anger and frustration will come in. And then you start being snarky. You're like, what's wrong with you? Nobody will ever understand that you're creating your own drama. And now you're mad at the world because you created it, but you don't know how to stop. So sometimes if you don't know how to stop, recognize that you have an issue and transmute yourself into a place where you know you're going to get fed. Sometimes it could be church. Sometimes it could be a meditation center. Sometimes it could just be sitting, watching television with people you like. Sometimes it could be holding somebody's baby. It could be anything that gives you a sense of life back. You got to constantly give it back because you're constantly giving it out without thinking about it. So, Josie, that was a very profound observation that you made. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sonora?
Yes, so my insecurity is about my belly. I have this pouch that If I don't hold it in, I look like I'm about 3 months pregnant. And it's just out of control to me. I mean, I'm too small to be having a big belly like that. So I hide it. I wear Spanx. I suck it up. I'll buy a shirt that's loose around the belly. Whatever I got to do to disguise it.
That's fair. That's fair. So did you ever have a C-section?
No, I never had one. And I mean, I feel like I always had a belly. Like, I think even as a teenager, I couldn't see, like if I'm in the shower and I just look straight down, I wouldn't be able to see my pubic hair unless I sucked in my belly. And I didn't have no kids then. So
I'm laughing because I do that trick too when I get in the shower. That's how I can tell if I lost any weight yet. But I've had 3 C-sections, so I got this little ledge. No matter how much weight I lose, I got this little skin right there. But the other part of it is so funny. See, that's why I love Girls Night Out, because we can talk women stuff, right? Nobody's gonna know, right? So 2 things that could be an indication of a gluten intolerance. Because gluten will expand your stomach, and that could also be stress. Cortisol will also create belly fat. And if you're stressed out and not know that you're stressed out, those are the telltale signs. Another telltale sign would be you would be puffy. Your face might get puffy, your rings might get tight, your ankles might swell. That's puffiness from adrenal gland stress response. Those are the 2 things. But the third reality is, however your body shows up, love it, because what you resist persists.
I know.
Right? So my husband, I talk about him all the time, he has this tendency when we land and he'll grab my little ledge and I'll be like, get off of it! And he goes, but I love it. That's like my baby trophy, right? That's like proof of life was down there. So he's like, that's mine. And I go, well, you can have it because I don't want it. He go, girl, stop. But it's also socialization. His mom was very heavy when he was younger. And so weight is not an issue for my husband. As a matter of fact, he said, girl, you're too skinny. And I'm like, no, I'm 4'11 and a half. I am not skinny. But because his mom was heavier, that was comforting to him. He said to hold on to her to her arms and to snuggle up next to her boobies. That was his sweet spot. So when I have this little shelf, he like, girl, that ain't nothing. But that's socialization, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you were in Africa, I don't know, my sister-in-law is from Uganda, and she was telling me about the different cultures. And one day we were just talking, and she was telling me about one of the tribes that when a woman gets married, she's expected to gain weight. And the bigger she is an indicator of her level of fertility. Cultural. So what one person doesn't like in themselves, it's accepted someplace else. So is it possible that the things that we don't like in ourselves is just a paradigm? Because now I see all of these people on purpose dyeing their hair gray.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was in a supermarket, I kid you not, and this lady was like, girl, ladies, she actually touched my hair, and she was like, oh yeah. I was like, oh, you don't touch nobody's hair? Are you crazy? But your hair is just so pretty. Who did it? And I'm like, it's called Echo Style and some hair grease. And she was like, you didn't get it dyed? I was like, no. And she just couldn't believe that I just didn't get my hair dyed. And she was like, because I wanted to get my hair that color. And I'm thinking, and I'm thinking, why? It's a trend. It's a trend. But even beyond that being a trend, the Bible says it's wisdom. So why am I rejecting wisdom? I went to Egypt in 2018. My husband took me to Egypt for my birthday. And one of the things that I noticed in the pyramids was the sculptures and the depictions of the women. And this is for you, Tenora. In every sculpture, in every picture, the woman had a pot belly.
Really?
Wow.
So women in that, and they had adorned with all the wonderful things and all the stuff in their hair. And we even bought some papyrus back home. So I have a papyrus that's about 7 foot tall, and it's like for the top of the thing to maybe always, it's like it's really beautiful. And it's Nefertiti and King Tut, and it tells a story. It's a papyrus story. But the two of them are getting married, and she has in this really beautiful outfit, but she has a pot belly, and she's not pregnant. If you look at any art, medieval art, you will see that the women are nice and, you know, they got a little bit of flesh on them. And that was considered beautiful, right? So it's all about the perception. Where do we get these things from that we don't like ourselves? Somebody outside of us told us we were supposed to be, and we subscribe to it. How foolish are we? How foolish am I?
Well, I like what you said about, I'm going to use that line, like that's evidence that I had life here. I like that.
Yes. See, it came from, and that came from a man. That came from a man.
Which are the ones that we're trying to please or attract.
You know what I also noticed that men hate? They hate makeup. I'll never forget a story. It's hilarious. I was with my sorority sisters. My husband was in the hospital, and they said, "Well, let's go." I was feeling like kind of down. We went to Columbia Mall, and there was a MAC counter. The lady was like, "You want to come and get your makeup done?" I was like, "No, I don't wear makeup." And she was like, "Well, it's free. You could, you know." And I was like, "Okay, well, let's try." So everybody was getting their makeup done. I thought I was looking so good. I even bought all the stuff that she did. Man, I spent like $60, $70. So I went to get my husband something to eat, and I went to the hospital to go visit him. He was kind of like waking up from medication, and he woke up, and I said, "Hi, honey." He did like this. "Ew, what happened to your face?"
Ew.
He said, "Ew, what happened to your face?" He was like, "What is all that mess on your eyes?" And I just knew I was looking good. So we change our appearance and our perspective, not necessarily for our mates, but for other people to have approval. Because if you did all the adorning for your mate and they say they don't like it, then why do we do it? My husband told me years ago, "I like gray hair." And I was like, so when it started growing gray, every time I would dye, he would go, "Oh, so what I like don't matter." He would get mad. And I would go, "Well, Dad, why are you being so sensitive about it?" "Well, I guess he should be sensitive about it. I belong to him. So why am I changing what he likes to have approval outside of him?" He was like, "Whatever." So then when people started, and this is what made him real mad, when people started saying how beautiful my gray hair was, then I started keeping it. Or he was hot. He was like, "Oh, my opinion wasn't good enough, was it?" Marital problem 101. Marital problem 101. So, yeah. How you see yourself and how you show up to the world and what's really happening is two different things. Two different things. How does that resonate with anybody?
I can relate to Tenora with the belly pouch. I had three big boys, and it's not until I got with my current partner that I started to feel a little more comfortable, because he's not one for the glitz and the glam. He doesn't care for the makeup and things of that sort. And really, when I'm a bit heavier, is, you know, what he likes as well. But I like to be on the thinner side. right? And you know, one thing that he brought to my attention was, you know, like, why don't you just do the best that you can do to be healthy? Like, go to the gym and, you know, work that out. And once you're at your best in terms of, you know, your health, then there shouldn't be more than that, because what's more important, you know?
Right.
And so it was like, wow, like somebody else had to say that to me for me to recognize it. So during quarantine, I'm a gym person. Like I'm not one to work out in my home, right? So I do miss going to the gym, but I think I became more comfortable with my body. You know, I wanted a bigger booty, and you know, I'm chesty, so you know, I have big chest, and I was okay with that, and a flatter stomach. But just getting that okay from him, and like you said, like if he's okay with it, then you know, why do I need to be concerned with anything else?
Right.
I think I'm so much more comfortable in my skin in that way. You know, yeah, I may have a little pouch, but who can say that they look like this after 3 kids? You know, is what I would say to myself, and I grew to be okay with it, right? T, you know,
Yes.
so with and on that note, like I'm so much more comfortable with my body, and every now and again I'll have a pouch, and when I'm working out it's not as bad, but whatever it is, it's mine, you know, and I love it. So I'm good with it now.
So I challenge everybody to pick something that you're going to be good with even before somebody else says it's good. Accept it before it gets validated and see what happens. Because it sounds like we didn't have acceptance until it was validated outside of who we are. Choose something about yourself that you're just going to say, I love it regardless. And keep it moving. And see how, if you get that same level of resolve, or would you still need reinforcement from outside of yourself? That's deep. That's deep. Yeah. Yeah. Can you think of anything? Anybody can think of anything? So we're not going to co-sign. We just want you to put it out in the universe what you're going to accept, independent of somebody's co-signing. I'm not going to start this one. Somebody got to be brave. Not everybody all at once.
I'm thinking.
Hey, baby.
I think people are very critical, or can be. And because of my height, I'm tall. So, and I'm light skinned. So people always think, okay, tall, light skinned, she thinks she's cute. You know, they expect you to be a certain weight. I never, I mean, because people can be so superficial about looks. I've always shied away from that. I don't want people to look at me, and I mean, I want to look nice, but I don't necessarily want the compliments, because it seems like it's almost expected. If you're light skinned, you're tall, people are going to say you look nice. I don't want people to look at me and talk about my looks. So when Dr. Reid, when you say something to Nora, when you say something, I'm like, thank you, but I'm like, no, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. So I said all that to say, Dr. Reid, when you were talking about Medgar liking how you look, and he loves your gray hair, and because he validated it, that was all that counted. I don't necessarily want people to validate me. I want to validate myself. So I don't care what they say. I want to have the confidence, and I want to do it for me. I don't want it to be somebody else's comment, responsibility. You know, I just want to own it for myself. So Isaiah, he'll say, you know, he loves my hair. And the other day he said something about my haircut didn't look right. Like my barber was slipping or something. I don't know, but I gave him the side eye and was like, you shut up, because it's what I like and what I want. But you know, is that me? I'm thinking it's my head, it's my hair. If I like it, I don't care what you like. But that's not nice if, you know, he's my friend. But I'm like, it's all about what I want, not necessarily what you want. Is that why I'm not married? We need another
I'm not going to comment on your marital status, but I would offer that maybe you want to look at whether you were being unnecessarily defensive, because he wasn't making a statement about how you looked. He was making a statement about the barber's performance. And we do use our significant others as barometers. Like my husband said to me, babe, can you bald my head? And I'm like, yo, I ain't trying to go do that. Because, you know, men got them little bumps. I'm like, I don't want you bleeding on my watch. And she said, my wife tried to cut my head off. I'm going to do that. I didn't want to do it. But I did it anyway. And after it was done, I said, you know what? I don't know if I did a good enough job. He was like, all right, it's bald. That's all I care about. And we out. Now, the fact is, he wanted a bald head. Whether I did a bad job or the barber did a bad job, that wouldn't have been a reflection on his desire to have a bald head. That would have been a reflection on however it was executed. And so it seemed like you took it in a way that he wasn't giving it. He was just bringing it to your attention that I think your barber may have messed up, and you felt the need to defend your desire for a haircut. You see the two differences?
No, he was trying to come from my barber and me. You never do that.
Feeling right there. But here's another part. And Tenora, you can co-sign with this. If somebody's comment or your interpretation of somebody's comment is causing you suffering, then what, Josie? What does that mean? What does it mean, Josie? If something causes you suffering, what does it mean? What does that mean about your interpretation or your paradigm? Tenora, you?
It means that they trigger you. They triggered you.
Right, and they're triggering them to tell a what? A small-minded story.
Yes.
Small-minded story.
Yeah.
Because there's so many ways that you can look at how he said. Because if he loves you, he's not gonna come for you. He's making an observation. But if you take it as he's coming for me, then you're telling a small-minded story. And you know you're telling a small-minded story because you felt suffering as a result of that interaction. Right? And so that's a check on you, not a check on him. He's like, wait a minute, he just made an observation. Why'd I come in his neck like that? Small-minded stories make for interesting bedfellows. Try to stay on the large-minded side because it's always empowering and it gives you so many perspectives to see something that's going to resonate with you, to take you further, not take you back. So you could have said, potentially, I don't know. Well, I thought that I wanted this particular haircut, but since you're looking at it, I can't see it from your perspective. What do you think? Because your hair, he knows your hair is short. That's not the issue. Your hair's, that's not even the issue. The issue is he identified that maybe he didn't do it right this time. Because it's not like that's the first haircut you've ever had. You went from long to short, right? So it wasn't about the style. It was about how it was delivered. But you told a small-minded story about how you perceived it, and that's why you felt offended. Tenora, I'm sorry?
I reframed it.
And what was the refrain?
That it's coming from a loving place and he's not attacking me.
There you go.
So I hugged him.
Awesome. Awesome. Because if we linger onto those small-minded stories, and that turns into long-standing anger. And if you have long-standing anger, you will be easily triggered, and everything is something that puts you on defense. And it's not even a defensive stance. I used to, when my sister was alive, you met my sister, and we were like thick as thieves. I mean, I could tell her anything. She'd tell me anything. She was just like everything to me. And one day she said, Steph, you are so defensive. And instead of being defensive, be like, no, I'm not. Because I know she loves me, I said, I am? Well, can you tell me when I do it so I won't do it too more? I appreciated her feedback. And so because she said it and she loved me, I wanted to improve because I knew it was coming from a place of support, not to tear me down. Right. Now, if I was trying to tell a small-minded story, I would say, what do you know about the fence, girl? I'm 15 years older than you. I got a right to be blah. Never came out of my mouth because I wasn't telling a small-minded story about what came out. I felt her love, and she didn't say it all that nice. She just said, damn, girl, you're so defensive. And I still said, I am? Well, can you give me an example? Because now I wanted to be better because I knew that it was coming from, and she didn't deliver it all that nice. And sometimes people would say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Well, that's not true. Because if you understand the intent, the delivery is irrelevant. The message is what's most important. Because sometimes people don't know how to deliver poignant information. They just know you need to hear it. So when she said, damn, girl, you're so defensive, she recognized that I needed to know that. And ever since then, I'm very conscious of whether I'm defensive or not. And that's why I teach you guys about equanimity and staying in the moment. If I'm in the moment, I can't be defensive. Because in the moment, there's nothing to defend. We're having a conversation, and that's it.
Dr. Reid?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I think it's a practice, though, because, you know, you make incremental changes as you get information. And that's what has been working for me by coaching with you. I find that now I am able to catch myself quicker and not allow these things to happen. So instead of telling myself a small-minded story, I can quickly shift into a large-minded story, and then pain is not an issue.
Yeah. And you're
it's
right.
It is a practice.
It is a practice. Yeah. And it's a practice that you eventually embody, because the question is always, how do you now feel that you've transitioned from a small-minded to a large-minded experience? Right? How do you feel now? How do you feel in your body? That's the embodiment piece. We talk about embodiment, but that's what it actually means. Adopting a practice that you can identify how it's impacting you at the moment. So I can say, when the Holy Spirit gives me insight to impart to you, my body gets warm, but I'm very relaxed. And I'm very calm in this experience, because I know that the Holy Spirit is speaking through me, and I'm just being a vessel. So there's no pressure on me to know what to say. If I have something to share, it'll just come through me. And if I don't, I'll say, Tenora, what you got? Tracy, you got something to say? I know Tracy got something to say. Or I'll say, Josie, what's up? So it is a practice, and you do embody it. And once you start recognizing how these shifts happen in your body, then that will be your go-to behavior, because you will want to replicate those good feelings. Like, I feel calm when I do X. I feel supported when I do X. I like that supportive feeling, so I'm going to do X more often. That's how the practice happens. So when we're doing the coaching calls and we do the reflect, reframe, renew, and I keep saying, well, did you do the tools? And I'm like, you got to do the tools. You have to reflect, reframe, renew. You have to journal. And until I get you to see the beauty of it, I reframe it for you. And as I'm reframing it for you, and you get a chance to feel the the renewal, you go, oh, I feel so much better. And now you get to recognize that it's that tools piece that's really giving me that breakthrough. Let me try this on my own, right? And then we'd have another coaching call, and I'll go, Josie will go, well, I reflected, I reframed, and this is what I came with. And I said, how do you feel? I felt so much better. But prior to doing that, if you don't know what the alternative feels like, you can stay stuck. So giving you another perspective of what it feels like in your body is another way to determine if something is working or it's not, because your body will give you feedback. Your spirit and your mind aligned will give your body a feedback. When it's misaligned, it will give you feedback. So if somebody says, Tamara, I need you to speak in front of this group of people. Intellectually, you know that you can do it, but in your heart, you're feeling scared. That misalignment might make your stomach hurt. You might get an upset stomach, and some people even get nervous poops. Like, wait a minute, I gotta go to the bathroom. I used to get nervous poops all the time, and before I would be so. Even now, if I hear news that shocks my system, I instantly have to go to the bathroom. Instantaneous. Now, not involuntarily, but I'm like, excuse me, I go to the bathroom, right? And so when they align, your body feels different. So when Tamara, when you're feeling something in your body uncomfortable, that means what you believe about speaking and what you know about speaking aren't matching up. When you match them up, then you have the confidence to go ahead and execute it. And that's where your breakthrough is, aligning the two components together. Your heart of hearts says, I'm so scared to do this, I don't want to be seen. The intellectual you says, but I'm an independent thinker, intellectual, intelligent woman who knows what I know, and I can impart this. These two conversations aren't matching. I got to get them to sync up. Once they sync up, girl, you're going to be on fire. And the syncing up is just allowing your heart to resonate with what's in your head. And I know that sounds backwards for you that work with me, but out of the heart, the mouth speaks. But whatever you have in your head, you bring into life. So either you're going to bring out into fruition, into the physical world, something positive, or you're going to bring in something negative. So if you're going to connect with something, change your mindset so this positive can resonate and bring this into reason. And then the two will meet, and then you'll be able to embody a new feeling of development and breakthrough for yourself. Did everybody catch that?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would like to add, Dr. Stephanie.
Yes, ma'am.
That I'd like to add that when you think about tools, normally you think of something outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
However, with the tools that you've given us, it's something that you can carry with you in your consciousness. So you always have it with you, and it's always available. Yep. So it's like a beautiful thing because you always have it with you because you carry it in your consciousness. That's something you have to go outside of yourself.
Yep.
To think of a tool.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I always say is I'm not teaching you anything. I'm helping you discover. And when you discover something, that means you're uncovering to see what's within. Right? That's all we're doing. Because everything that I've shared with you, once you allow yourself to resonate with it, you go, oh, I think I knew that already. I just didn't know it kind of like that. But I kind of, yeah, I get that. And that's why I always say, how does it resonate with you? Because resonate means a knowing. The vibration, the resonance of the two are meeting. So my spirit said something, your spirit caught it, and now they're dancing. I used to like to call these spiritual play dates because we're really communicating on a spiritual level. It seems superficial, but then it goes real deep real quick. And then at the end of it, and we're at that point, I would always say, so how do you feel in your body now, ladies, as it relates to how you felt before we started having this conversation? How do you feel? Anybody? Not everybody at one time.
These conversations always excite me. Like it's just like goosebumps on my skin because, again, like you stated, that that the fact that things are resonating because those things are so familiar, and yeah, it feels good. It feels good.
How do you feel in your body?
In my body, I feel calm, and when I'm this way, it's because I'm being receptive. So that's what leads to the feeling good. So my body is calm, because I do a lot of check-ins with myself because I tend to tense up, and so yeah, I feel relaxed, and I'm just taking it all in.
Good, good. I'm glad that you were able to get on this call to have this moment of calmness, because we have enough of the other all the time. But when you can get a moment like this, you milk it for everything that it's worth. Hold on to that sense of calmness throughout the night, in the morning. If anybody doesn't have any objection to it, this is recorded and I'm going to upload them on YouTube so you can be able to watch them again. And I'm as transparent, so if I'm transparent, you guys, right? How about anybody else?
I feel deeply appreciative, and having that feeling gives me, like Tamara says, I feel calm and relaxed, and it just puts me in a really good place because it's like having a light bulb moment or an aha moment, and I feel deeply appreciative.
Awesome. How do you feel in your body? Calm and relaxed. So that's 2, calm and relaxed. Going once, going twice. Anybody else?
I feel lifted.
Lifted. Okay. Can you explain it?
Relaxed. Lifted. I feel uplifted. I feel lighter.
Good. Lighter. Got it. Got it.
Like a revelation.
Okay. Good.
Inspired.
Inspired. Okay.
I'm feeling I want to say like love and acceptance. Like I'm laying here rubbing my belly, right? And I'm like, I carried life here twice, and like I'm just feeling kind of loving towards myself.
Now here's the thing. Just when you start loving it, your body's going to do what you ask it to do, and it might leave. So you have to decide if you want it to stay or if you don't, because now your spirit is receptive to make changes from a place of loving connectedness.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Well, ladies, we have 6 minutes left. Does anybody have any final comments or questions or anything that I can support you with in 6 minutes?
Well, I just wanted to say I was still trying to think about what it is that I can love on my own without getting it from an outside source, and that's my feet. My feet. I'm going to work on that.
Okay. And what's wonderful about your feet?
What's wonderful about it? It's cute and fat, and I think I like the shape of my nails. That's what I have right now.
Good, because notice I did not say what's wrong with your feet, that you need to fix it. I said what's good about your feet, and you answered that. You rose to the occasion. Thank you, my dear, for doing it.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to share what they're going to do without anybody's outside influence? Well, Tanora, you said you held on to that. Life was here, so that's a loving feeling. So now you don't need outside validation about your belly. Or
Yeah,
do you?
I don't.
Good, good. And Josie, if I had to guess, I wouldn't guess, but what would it be?
I'm going to just speak freely and not worry whether my accent comes out or not. Just speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Trace?
I am going to be more confident about how I feel, what I say, and once I deliver, in a conversation, what I have to say, I'm not going to keep validating or over explaining myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, people understand and they learn differently. So I usually try to compensate for that, but I overcompensate. So I just want to, I don't have to talk myself to death to get my point across.
Okay.
Confidence in what I'm saying.
Good.
I do like to talk.
Nothing wrong with that. Especially when you have profound things to share. God gave us so many different gifts, and some of us He made for us to be vocal. It's the people that are vocal that are the protectors of others. Right? If I had to say something that I was not gonna be validated with, I'm practicing accepting how I show up with my personality, not having to be like a traditional doctor is supposed to be. I'm animated, I'm funny, I have my facial expressions, I'm all over the place, and that doesn't diminish my level of acumen and what I understand wellness and health to be from all the disciplines that I have, and I don't have to act like all those other practitioners. People say, "You don't act. Are you? You don't act." Look, I only know how to be who I am. And if it doesn't fit your model of what you think I do, then that's not my issue. That's your issue. But I'm not going to stop being my animated, all over the place, funny self because you have an idea of what a practitioner should behave. And so therefore I'm practicing not having people push me into that mold because they try. And I'm like, this circle is not for me. Like I have some friends that are in other disciplines in medicine, and they are so staunch. It's like, take a breath, please. You're making me feel like I'm gonna hyperventilate any second. I'm gonna get cyanosis for you because you're too stiff. It's just, and I think it's a learned behavior of expectation. And I can't fall into that, so I'm not. And that will determine, if that determines what clients believe that they can work with me or not, I'm not going to alter that. And it's going to be okay.
It is okay, Dr. Stephanie, because I love that about you.
Oh, thank you so much, Josie. Yeah. I love you too. I have so much love in my heart for the people that I connect with. And because of it, it allows me to be more human, more personable, more, I don't know how to be not caring or not compassionate. And I can't hide behind the title to give the world something that they've created about a specific profession. It's like, I can see right through you and you ain't full of nothing, but here we go. Right? So I can't do it. And so I practice not doing. I had a call today, and sometimes I have calls with very influential people, and I catch myself being less me. And then I just like, you know what? Look, it is what it is. You either hear what I'm saying or you don't. But depending on who it is, I find that I pull back some. And then when I do, I don't deliver the level of support to the degree that I know that I could because I'm not being myself. And that's another reason why I just stopped trying to. This is Dr. Steph, y'all. It is what it is. I have what you need. And if you're ready for it, then I'm ready for you. But if I'm not what you kind of think I should be, then okay. I'm cool with that too. But I used to didn't always be. I would switch up to try to, and I don't do that anymore. I don't do that. And so that's something that didn't come from someone else outside of me saying that. It was a realization that I had to make for myself, because it made me very uncomfortable trying to be everything for everybody within my professional world. Can't do it. So,
Makes sense.
yeah. Because Tracy, you've known me for a long time. I'm just as nutty as you've always known me.
But you know what, Dr. Reid, I'm thinking you can be reserved for people that don't know you.
I
Until they get to know you.
Yeah,
To break the ice, you don't necessarily want to just be crazy from the first introduction. Like, who is this crazy person? You want to talk to people, you know?
Yeah, I can be pretty reserved in the beginning.
Yeah.
My husband and I, before COVID, we did a lot of things together in the public eye. And my husband is very gregarious, and so is as open and as personable as I am. You don't hear a peep out of me in public settings when he's with me. I am as quiet as a mouse, and I just let him move the crowd and move the room, because in his presence, I don't feel as though I need to outshine him.
Right.
I shine in my own presence. I shine in my own right, in my circle of reference. And when we're in his circle of reference, I'm happy just going, hello, hello. If somebody says something, I go. And if they engage in a conversation, but I don't work the room and say, I'm Dr. Stephanie Reid, and I did. You never know what I do or who I am. You just know, oh, I think that's Reverend Reid's wife. And they go, yeah, she's over there. And if somebody might say something, then I'll engage, but I don't feel the need to be so bright. So I know when to be bright and when not to be. And it's not that I'm dimming my light. It's just, it's like you have a switch. You dim it, you know when to turn it up and when to turn it down. I never lose sight of who I am, but I always understand where I am in context of how I show up. And that's me being the conscious observer in my environments. And so that's an example of how you show up and how you think you show up. Right? Yeah. So I hope that everybody had a good session tonight. And it was, the 5 of us was very powerful. It doesn't require a large number for the spirit to come in and minister to us as women, give us what we need. You don't need a mega experience for that. This is a very intimate, close, special, sacred space, because we've created it with our energy. And because we were open enough to share our fears, our insecurities, and even our breakthroughs, there's something to be said about how healing really happens. And I think I can say for me, listening to each one of you was energy for me. And I hope I was able to give you some energy, and we just crossed it back and forth. And it's like the doctor, somebody's in the hospital. Remember I told you when somebody's in the hospital, whoever's weakest, the stronger person gives them something, and they leave with a little bit of the negative energy of the weaker person, and they leave some of their strength. And we've all done that. We've left some of our strengths and we've taken away some of the weakness. Does that resonate with anybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is what these girls' night outs are for. That's what they're designed to do. So we do it every other week, because I'm honestly, y'all, I'll be tired. And so if you feel as though there's someone else who could benefit from these experiences, have them join in, because there's not too many platforms that I've seen that are as this authentic and this supportive of women. You know, it's about how do we support each other in this land of weird. Wow. Like, this ain't my new norm. I'm gonna create my own new normal, but this isn't it. But this can be a way that we can collectively come together to heal as women, especially women of color. Black women. I'm gonna just say it out loud. So I give all you guys virtual hugs. And we will connect in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Stephanie.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome anytime. Anytime.
Yes.
All
Thank
right,
you.
take care, you guys.
Good night,
Thank
ladies.
you.
Have a good
Good
weekend.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Too.